Good morning and welcome to the first week of this class in child psychology. I think what I'm going to do this first week is talk about the first chapter. Actually, I know that. We're talking about the first chapter that's being online. I'm just going to try to give you a little bit of an introduction so you can see my face and hear what I think is important in this first chapter. This is not meant to be the substitution for actually reading the chapter. In fact, I'll refer to look for this in the chapter, which means that you have to read it and interact with it. I will provide each week the chapter reading. You'll also get my PowerPoint, which is far more than I would ever talk about in a face-to-face class. So when you're reviewing that, it's really just a summary. You'll also get my notes, my outlines, and my objectives, which are the questions that you should ask yourself just to know that you really have mastered what the chapter's talking about, what I would expect you to know from the chapter. They're not necessarily a written assignment or anything like that. You don't have to turn in, but the objectives are just so you know what I'm expecting you to learn from the chapter. Okay. So consequently, let's get going. Let's get into the first chapter. And first of all, I think your textbook asks the question, why is caring for children important? And I think this is the thing that we'll find. We might find some diversity in this class. You know, mostly people who take child psychology are interested in children. You may want to be a better parent. You may want to be a teacher. You may want to be a nurse and have to interact with children. Remember that the study of psychology is less about memorizing all of the facts than it is about learning the questions to ask. We take two positions. First of all, we want to see generally how we as human beings are like, the commonalities that all of us have had in childhood, and then we'll also want to understand what is it that makes us unique. My perspective of children, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, my perspective of children and interacting with children is it's less about shaping them like they're a bowl of clay and more about sitting back and watching them and seeing what blossoms. And I think that's what you have to understand as we look at child psychology. I'm not going to really arrive at a lot of the answers of what do you do to make a child a certain way. It's more, what can you do to help the child naturally become that way? Okay. Another thing is that we really do care about children. As you look around all of the wonderful or horrible issues, children not getting proper medical care, or children not getting enough fruits and vegetables, or childhood obesity, or children carrying guns to school and killing each other. All of these, and I take this stuff very seriously. I don't take this lightly. All of it you will find in this class in child psychology. We might touch on some areas where honestly we could make a difference. Hopefully we can make a difference. Okay, so that's the focus here. Something else you have to understand as you read through this textbook, and we cover child psychology, that we're taking three different perspectives: a biological perspective, a cognitive perspective, and a socio-cultural or a socio-emotional perspective. With children, we want to understand their physical development, and there might be a lot of the generalities, the commonalities among children. You would expect most of us in our first 2 years grow at exponential rates. But then you'll also see in cognitive why there is a difference, where you take millions of children every year start kindergarten, hundreds of thousands, I don't know how many there are, but they start kind of go, why is it that some children are ready to learn and some children are not? We'll look at all those reasons right there. Socio-emotionally, now, I think this is really the most important area because, okay, whether you're tall or short, whether you're thin, skinny or fat, or anywhere in between on all those, is probably less important than how do you think and how do you treat other people. Okay, that may limit your life a lot more than a lot of the physical stuff. Okay, socio-emotional is really important. So let's try not to throw that away or downplay it. So in this book, we're going to also, or in this chapter, in this chapter, we'll also see that there is some discussion of different theories and different periods of development. We basically have 4 or 5 units: pre-birth, first couple of years, the play years, which is preschool years, the middle childhood, where we're in elementary school, and then adolescence. This was originally 2 different classes. I had to squeeze them together and not do adolescence in the whole semester, but child psychology includes adolescence now. Consequently, as we're looking at different ages, we also want to take into account something called cohort effects. That what you might find your experiences at 5 years old might be different from someone else's experiences at 5 years old. If you're in your 50s, say, your experiences at 5 years old are much different from someone who's sitting here who's 18 years old. Okay, it's almost a completely different world. This is called cohort effects. Okay, so we try not to make assumptions. Make assumptions about what is it like as a 5-year-old, because life is different. Okay. Toward that end, we're going to look at some issues this semester. No matter what chapter we're in, we're probably always kind of touch on 3 main issues here. And first is nature and nurture. We want to understand what is it that makes us who we are, that we really can't change, the biology and the genetics. And then we also have the nurture, which is our environment. Maybe you don't have a lot of choice of that either, but you do have choices about things that you do and your decisions, which is also environmental. I find that I can't pull the two apart. It's like this. It might be genetic whether you're tall or short. However, it could also be environmental why you're tall or short, because genetically you may have the genes to be really tall, but you're not. And the reason would be, say you didn't get enough milk as a child. You didn't drink enough milk. So your bones didn't really follow what your genes were telling them to follow. And that is just an example of how nurture affects nature, and nature affects nurture as well. Come on now. If you've been to school, you know there's a difference between being a cute child and being a not cute child or whatever. Teachers teach differently depending on how children look, which is how nature affects nurture. All right, what else? Continuity and discontinuity is another issue that we're going to see in this chapter. Throughout all of the chapters. Try to keep in mind that child psychology, we're assuming a lifespan approach, which means that what happens to you every day affects everything else that happens the rest of your life. So you're sitting here, you like people or not like people, that's largely the result of life experiences. Okay, just for an example, that's called the continuity. Most of us have a pretty continuous life. There are periods, however, that we're going to find there's discontinuity. Like suddenly a parent dies. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative, but someone dies. Now your life takes a right turn, or you made a choice to do something. Now you're 14 years old. You're not 14. You're a parent now, or something like that. See, so that's continuity, how our life changes. So we want to, keep those things in mind. You also want to keep in mind that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is universal. It has to do with how we're alike. We're also context specific. Are we different? Why are we different? And I discussed that before. A lot of this first chapter you're also going to find is scientific. Is a lot with research. It's important to understand theory. It's important to understand that there's nothing that you're going to read in your textbook or we're going to discuss. I don't know nothing, but most things wouldn't really be fact, like true for everybody. They're theoretical though, and that's okay. Meaning, for most people that might be so. And what we take from that is not, this is a worthless course because we don't know all the answers. But what we take from that is the course can help us to understand what questions to ask so that we can get to know other people better, so we can understand children. Okay? And that's pretty much the first chapter. I hope you enjoy it and have a great week. Take care of yourselves.